All right, welcome back to the show. I guess today is composer Stefan Smith. He worked on the latest DC animated film, Batman: The Doom That Came to Gotham. Uh, the movie that it came out probably in the March, and it's inspired by the Elseworlds series by Mike Mignola, Richard Pace, and Troy Nixey. So it's based in the 1920s, and Bruce Wayne accidentally unleashes an ancient evil, and then he returns to Gotham after his travels abroad and must face this evil. But we're here to talk about the awesome music. So let me bring in our guest, and let's find out about the role he played in it.
Hey,
Good
how's it
afternoon.
going?
How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, nice. I love the shirt. I see we
Yeah,
coordinated.
we're matching today. I have to represent a little bit.
Yeah. So to start off, tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, and projects you've done.
I'm from a suburb of Chicago named Joliet, Illinois, and I kind of grew up as a classical musician. I play viola professionally here in Los Angeles, and fell in love with film scores when I was very young. And from there, I made it a point to want to be able to write for them. And so I worked my butt off through conservatory and playing and majored in performance and also composition, and eventually moved to Los Angeles, where I went to USC for graduate studies. And then from there, won a job in the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra, which kind of opened up the doors to playing on the stages for and recording on the stages for motion picture soundtracks and video games and all sorts of stuff. So I kind of grew up, playing on these stages all the time, being surrounded by the orchestra. And in 2020, I decided, you know what? I love playing, I love recording, but I want to do more writing. And so I focused on that and eventually ended up landing this project, Batman, and several others coming up as well.
So, uh, what is your history with maybe either Batman or comic books in general? Do you have a one that sticks out as maybe one of the first ones you remember, or the one that kind of piqued your interest about the hobby or
I'm fairly new to it, to be honest with you. I'm a twin, and my older brothers are twins. So my older brothers were way more into comic books than we were, just because growing up in like early '80s, it was all the rage and everything, and we were so used to watching like comic book stuff, but animated.
Mhm.
So I have an appreciation for it in that sense. Batman being one of my favorite scores, Danny Elfman's score when I was younger, hearing that, watching that movie, just being engrossed into that world in general, it just felt like it was an amazing opportunity to be able to, contribute to this franchise melodically and sonically. So I'm very new to it. I had the chance to go to WonderCon to speak on a panel about the music for Batman: The Doom That Came to Gotham. And it was just nice being around that community and seeing how much people are so involved in it, and kind of made me more intrigued to get more
Mhm.
involved in it. So, but yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but
No,
I'm
no, no,
fairly
that's
new to it, but
well, that's
intrigued.
yeah, well, that's perfectly fine.
Mhm.
Even though you're new to it, I mean, is Batman kind of your so far your go-to character given your experience, with the film, or or do you have any other characters that maybe you have found out, discovered, and have been intrigued by?
I mean, I would say that the majority of superheroes I have been intrigued by have been DC based.
Hmm.
Just in the fact that their stories are like revolve around I don't know. Like, I just feel like I'm more connected to that universe than Marvel, if that makes sense. So,
Oh,
like,
not
I
that it
loved
does.
Spider-Man and Batman and growing up, and so I think I'm still, like I said, getting more involved in all of it.
Yep.
After doing this project, it just made me way more intrigued in general about exploring more about comic books.
So you said this was your, did I hear correctly that this was your first time actually like composing the score?
Well,
Or
this no, I've been scoring films, man, since 2004 or five, I think.
Mhm.
Like I did my first film. There was actually an undergrad in the composition department. A director came to uh, the department head requesting a composer for the film, and none of the students wanted to do film music except for me. And so that's kind of how I got my head start into it. And having a studio rig in my dorm room freshman year and sophomore year, and I looked crazy, but I was kind of pretty much focused on that. And so I've just been kind of balancing between scoring films, playing professionally, recording professionally. But I would say this would be my first studio release film with a major
Mhm.
studio, i.e., Warner Brothers DC Animation. And I'm really excited about it because I think it brings a new sound to the universe, especially since this film is so unique on its own. It's not really like many of the other um, animated Batman, so it was kind of cool that I could put a different sound on it for once, you know.
So I know you mentioned growing up, you know, the Danny Elfman, and he's kind of the, I guess when you think of the Batman score, a Batman score, then it's usually his Batman score. Was it? I don't know. I don't know if the right word is intimidating. Kind of trying to also take
No, no, I'm laughing because it is. You know, there's some incredible composers who contributed to the sound of Batman. So, you know, you have Danny Elfman, Shirley Walker, which, you know, was incredible for the animated series, Elliot Goldenthal for having that really dark sound as well. And then you have Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard, which they go without saying are incredible, you know. So, rising up to the ranks of that type of sound was very intimidating. But you know, I think the cool part about it is the funny part about it is at the time when I was talking to Sam Liu about potentially scoring the film, I was actually on tour with Danny um, for a bit. We were doing performances with him at Coachella, and we also did a performance with him at the Hollywood Bowl, doing basically all his music from all his movies, and also selections from Oingo Boingo. So that entire time preparing to score this film, I was engrossed by Danny's sound. So it was
Mhm.
almost like it was like a master class in a sense of like, you know, drilling it into my head what
Yeah.
Batman is, you know, and taking that and then making it my own, you know. So that was a very fortunate thing to happen, sequence of events, I guess.
So let's kind of walk me through the, I guess, the procedure of how you work. When you're working on the music, do you watch the animated film first and kind of get a grasp for the feel of what's going on the screen, and then take that and use your adapt your music to that, I guess.
Yeah, usually what we're given in animated films, it usually starts off with a spotting session with the director, viewing various cuts of the film. So that sometimes in this instance, it's broken up to three acts, and from there we would sit down and kind of watch it. And where should the music start? Where should it end? What's the type of emotion? What are things that we're trying to hit? There's sometimes an animation where we don't even see a fully, you know, colored version of the film where it's an animatic and you have to really imagine what's going to happen in front of you. And that's very what's the word, that's very common for most composers to receive animatics and say, hey, get to it. And you have to bring that inspiration. In this case, there was no temp score, and there was no sound design added before I got started. I got started pretty early in the process, relatively. The schedule was very, very, very condensed, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. So we didn't have a lot of time to do what we needed to do, but we did a great job in that time. And I think Sam did an amazing job putting all of this together in the time allotted, But yeah, it starts basically sitting down, watching it, discussing with the director, producer, what we want to convey musically. And then from there, as other elements are married to the film, i.e. sound design, maybe pickups from dialogue or whatever, then the music has to kind of massage that. And so throughout the process, we're constantly tweaking things, revising things to make sure it works exactly how it should. In this unique situation, sound design and music was working at the same time. So, it was a lot going on throughout the process of just trying to figure out, is this the sound that we want right here, and tweaking it to the point to where it is released, So
Yeah.
very involved process, I would say.
And how long did it take, you to like complete the entire project?
Oh man. It's hard to quantify, just because when you're in it, time just stops. But I would say it was probably around like a month and a
Okay.
half to two, maybe not 2 months. It really, because the first few weeks you're really sitting there trying to figure out, is this the sound we want, or what else can we change, what else can we uh, do we need to add more to this scene, should we take this out? And so once we finally get the sound of the sound world, then it's like the score starts writing itself. So
Mhm.
it can take a few weeks just to establish that, and from there, that's when the magic happens. So but I would say probably about a month and a half,
Okay.
total for 90 minutes of music, which was a lot of music, and
Yeah.
most of it written by me. I think there's only 2.5 minutes out of it that my assistants, Krista and Jamie, helped me with right at the end. So,
Now the film has a very H.P. Lovecraft type feel. You know, that's kind of what the story is, kind of the feeling. Were there any, works of music that you kind of pulled from to, capture that, or any other composers that you kind of sought to? I don't want to say. Maybe the word I'm looking for is emulate. Emulate. I don't know. I don't know.
or
um,
maybe inspired by.
emulate.
Emulate, yeah. I would say, yeah. I mean, there was a lot of research that I did prior to starting the project, just because I got kind of the log line and also reviewed the comic to see what was going on, and it's very, in my words, kind of a bizarre story that's really cool, but there's just a lot going on. So the tone that we were trying to set, since it's in the 1920s, required that we have like an older type of sound, so we could really bring the audience in. So I was listening to a lot of just like old school Hollywood composers like Korngold and Bernard Herrmann and stuff like that, and then also mashing that together with Elfman and Shirley Walker and Goldenthal, and then also classical music. Listening to Wagner and Respighi, and I mean, I feel like every project I start on, I always form this little playlist of inspiration,
Mm-hmm.
and just that fits whatever that, it doesn't do completely fit it, but fits somewhat in that sound world that I'm trying to create. And from there, it kind of helps me keep my ear and mind tuned to what I'm trying to target, if that makes sense.
Oh no, I
So,
I I I think I get where you're coming from. I only made it out of high, I was only, in the band through high school. So,
Mhm. What did you play? What instrument?
well, I held a trombone. I don't know if I really played it. Um,
That's a fun instrument.
um, so is there a favorite part of the movie that you really had fun, I guess, scoring or, working with, or a
Oh,
favorite character, or a favorite moment that, you just,
I think the finale is literally my favorite moment. It was like the time where I was basically like, let's pull all the stops out on the organ and just blast it away. So it's the fight scene towards the end, where I don't want to give spoiler or give any spoilers. So
oh, go ahead. It's been out for a couple
it's out
weeks.
now. Where
It's out
where
now.
he turns into the Batman, and that
Yes.
whole sequence at the end where he's traveling outside of that realm and comes out, and then Gotham is being destroyed, and I gave that one of the cues for that where it's turning red, the Requiem for Gotham, just like this really somber moment. But I really appreciated that moment because it allowed me to um, just sing, musically,
Mhm.
and just let the music really drive um, a lot in the film. So I would say that I think the third act is where the music, I feel, really takes off. And that's what I'm most proud of. But I'm proud of all of it. I'm proud of
Yeah.
all. It was a very, very involved film, for a composer, to so many characters, so many things going on. Not a very easy film to score, and I think I think we did a good job. So,
Yeah. Oh, no, you did a great job.
oh, thank you.
I watched the film, and I love, you know, I love listening to the movie, music, and it
Mhm.
is it's very full of emotion, especially, and it fits the uh, movie perfectly.
Oh, well, thank
Um,
you.
so is there anything a different approach when you're composing for like a movie like this compared to, you said you did video games or you did other musical
Yeah.
projects? You've talked about how your process for recording the music and all that, but how does it compare to some of the other projects and other mediums that you've done?
Well, this film was very different because of the timeline of turnaround of the music and what we need to do. We had to work quickly, and most of it had to be produced, with me playing everything and programming everything. So the actual score you heard was not a orchestra playing; it was actually me performing every part
Oh, wow.
into the computer and
Oh,
mixing it and producing it. And
okay.
so um, that's something different. I do scores in the sense, but to this degree, it was very involved, So I would say that's the difference between other things I've done. Most of the time it's producing the cues, reviewing it with the director, and then once they're approved, then we would orchestrate them and then go to the recording session with live musicians, record it, mix, and then deliver. But for this, it was write it, revise, write, revise, approve, move on to the next one, go to the finish line, because it's literally from the beginning to the end has music. So there was no time to, do the traditional approach of
Mhm.
scoring, you know.
Well, I'm even more impressed now that you said you did all the music yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a task, and it wasn't just me. I mean, I wrote all of the music, but I have my assistants there that were helping me, with studio notes and things, taking down things to help me just concentrate on writing. And so, but as far as for the score, the majority of the score, besides maybe 3 minutes or so, was written by me. So, and performed and programmed. So, but yeah.
Looking back, is there maybe when you're listening to it, and I don't know if you do this, but you probably do because you sound like you're a musician. So when you listen to something that you've done, you could probably always pick out something that either in hindsight you thought could be done better or like that.
Oh
is
yeah. I think that's the constant struggle of a composer, like you're constantly stuck in edit mode, even when you submit something, um, you can be proud of it, but if you listen to it again, you'll always have something that you think you could tweak, but you have to just live to learn with, learn to live with, um, putting your music out there,
mhm.
and you have to learn to not be a perfectionist because that's impossible. We're human, so you could tweak things infinitely. I feel Mozart, Beethoven, all of those guys would feel the same way, which is
Yeah,
why if you look at their music, they have several editions, several versions. There's one orchestra that played it this time. 2 years later, they have a different version of the same piece they did. So it's just this, constantly revolving art that luckily for film composers, once it's a wrap, most of the time it's a wrap and you're moving
yeah.
on to the next project. But if, for instance, I'm working on a concert piece for the National Orchestra Institute right now, and that is going to be premiered this summer, that is something that, potentially can be tweaked over time, and I may go
Mhm.
back and revise and whatever. But once a score is out, it's done. So
Yeah.
you have to live with the decisions you may have made and the time that may be rushed or whatever. You live with it and you learn to accept those things. I think the risks that we took for this score outweigh the things that we would want to tweak further. So um, or like not the risk. I guess I said that wrong. The positive aspects of everything that we put out there in this score outweigh the negative
Mhm.
things. That makes more sense.
And I know we talked about influences for the music, but who are your influences musically?
Hmm, that's a loaded question. I don't know. There's too many to name, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like, I mean, it's just from old, from the composers who are no longer with us to the ones I see on the stage, like, for instance, the past few weeks, I guess I can announce it here. We're going to be releasing the score for Batman, the Doom that came to Gotham in the next few
Nice.
weeks. So that'll be, I can't give a date yet, but if you watch my socials at Viola Nation, VIOLANATION everywhere,
Okay.
then there'll be an official announcement on there. Um, but while I was working on producing and finalizing the masters for the release, I was literally recording on the stage at Fox for Transformers, and running in between my breaks to do notes with the label and going
Mhm.
back to record. And so it's like this life that I'm living just feels kind of like a dream, to be honest,
Mhm.
because every day I walk into the studio, I'm meeting someone who's some name talent who, when you approach them, they're just the coolest person in the world and view you as like a colleague, and
Mhm.
so all of these people that I'm working with when I'm recording or whatever, all of them are inspirational to me, just being in
Mhm.
those rooms playing the music. So I guess if I were to give some names, recent names, I would say one of my dearest friends, Anthony Parther. He's a conductor in the studios, but also conducts the San Bernardino Symphony and other orchestras around. He's been a huge inspiration, specifically for his like diversity inclusion efforts in
Mhm.
Hollywood on the music side, and contributing more, in elevating almost the film music scene in LA and worldwide, I feel. Um, I think those type of people, Michael Abels, being a great voice for other people of color writing stuff for films, Jermaine Franco, Chris Bowers, JB, Jermaine Stiegel. I mean, there's so many, John Williams,
Yeah.
Danny Elfman. There's so many people I could name. So I
Yeah.
would just say the world of music keeps me inspired every dang day.
Well, as we wrap up here, would you like to kind of give a pitch for the movie and include your part and kind of include once again give people your where they can follow you on social media?
Oh, sure. Well, if you're ready for something you have not seen before by DC Animation, feel free to check out the film, Batman, the Doom That Came to Gotham, directed by Sam Liu, and music composed by myself, Stefan L. Smith. If you'd like to know when the soundtrack would be released, which is very soon, so make sure you check it out. My socials for IG, Twitter, TikTok is at Viola Nation. That's spelled VIOLANATION. And that information will be posted soon.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time this afternoon to chat. And again, if anybody watching hasn't seen this film, like the rest of the DC animated films, this one is great. I particularly like the score, the music.
Oh, thank you.
I'm excited to hear that they're releasing the soundtrack.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited too. I think you guys will love it, and I'm just excited to get it out to the world. I think it's something that's valuable for everyone. So,
All right. Well, thank you once again for coming on. And if you ever have any more comic book related projects that you are involved in, we'd love to have you back and have you talk about those.
sounds good. I'd love it.
All right. Well, take care, everybody, and we'll catch you next time.
Take care.